Welcome to Game Changers live from Miami, Florida. My name is Sergio Tigera. I'm your host. And each and every week, we bring you someone who has been a game changer in their field and who's touched the lives of thousands to get their perspective on their journey, their mindset, their struggles and successes so that we can inspire you on your journey. So let's get started right now. Hi guys, this is Sergio from Game Changers. Thank you so much for your support in making this podcast a top 2% podcast globally. Thank you so much. I couldn't be doing it without your support. And we have a brand new sponsor partner program that you could support and sponsor this type of programming and keep it going. If you're enjoying this, if you find value in these interviews and you want to associate and sponsor and support Game Changers, now you can for the first time. So if you're interested in this type of partnership, email us at info@gamechangerslive.co, or you can just go to gamechangerslive.co and send us a note and we'll get back to you to have a discussion. All right, so today's episode is sponsored by the Doral Family Journal. Every great city, like the city of Doral, Florida, which is one of the fastest growing cities in the country, has a fantastic newspaper, and that's the Doral Family Journal. They're there to cover all the events throughout. I don't think they miss a single one, and covering all the latest news and information and pictures and videos. They have a great online presence as well to make sure that the city of Doral residents and around all Miami are aware of all the great things that are going on. So thank you so much, the Doral Family Journal. You can check them out at doralfamilyjournal.com for supporting this episode with School Board District 5 Representative Christi Fraga. And welcome to Game Changers Live. You can catch us each and every week on your favorite podcast station. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, you name it, on social media. Make sure to hit subscribe because we have some amazing guests each and every week, and this week is no exception. So this week we have Christi Fraga, and she is a hardworking Cuban American family, born and raised here in Miami-Dade County, and she is a school board member for District 5. In 2012, she ran for the city of Doral's council and was elected as the youngest person in the city's history to serve on the council. The following year, Christi was appointed by her colleagues to serve as the city's vice mayor, as a position that she held for 3 out of 8 years that she served on the council. She's also an entrepreneur, a strong community advocate, raising funds and awareness for the Women's Breast Health Initiative, the American Cancer Society, Relay for Life, and organizations that help people with disabilities battle domestic violence and provide gratuitous healthcare services for the community. Obviously, a very well-engaged person, and that resume, I had to cut it short because it's quite extensive. So welcome, Christi, to the show.
Thank you, Sergio. It's a pleasure to be with you and everyone who listens to Game Changers.
Yeah, fantastic. So we just finished up Hispanic Heritage Month, and we're on the kind of tail end of this, right? And we're also in the season of giving. So it's perfect timing for you to be on the show because you have been such a big community advocate. That's been part of your mission in life. Before we get into that, though, tell me about what drives you. Like, how did you get to this point, and what kind of defines your life, right? As you kind of tell me a little bit about your background growing up and what has driven you to become the person you are today.
Sure. So I wear several different hats. Besides being a community leader, activist, politician in the community, really, because that's what it is, our political leader. I also am a mom, an entrepreneur, a wife, very, very close to my family. So very, always giving my family as well. I decided to run for office because I felt that people from our generation, our youth, needed to be more involved. And what better way to be involved than to actually be one of the decision makers on what happens in our local community. I ran in 2012. I was 23 years old, but it was a time where Doral was changing. It was very dynamic. It was really our opportunity to make sure that Doral went in the right track, and that we were able to see the things we wanted for growing families in our community. I, at that time, had just gotten married, had planned to have kids in this community. my businesses were in this community. And so I said, you know what, to make sure that we are going in the right on the right track, that we are seeing the community we want, that we're building the community that we want our families. I want to be a part of the solution. And so I decided to run for office, something that I kind of always had inside me. I was involved in student government all throughout school. I really, really enjoyed that part. I am fascinated by politics in the form that you can have two difference of opinions and have to find consensus to be able to, improve the place where you live, work, learn, and play. And so that's what fascinates me by politics, is that you can have people thinking completely different and that ideas to find consensus and really make it better for everyone who lives in that community. And so that's why I got involved. For me, that's the challenge I enjoy, is being that consensus builder. And I went out, knocked on over 5,000 doors because I was new. I didn't have the funding, I didn't have the connections, but I really believed in what I stood for. I believed in my vision for this city. So I went out, knocked on 5,000 doors, and was able to get the support of my community to allow me to leave my mark, in a sense, and put my vision to action. And we were able to get a lot accomplished in those 8 years that I was on the council. It was life-changing for me. What an amazing experience. Met amazing people, really built incredible relationships. And so then when my term came to an end last
Hold on,
year.
hold on. Okay, there's a lot here. Let's
Yes,
unpack some things because we don't want to get too ahead yet. Okay, so you said you ran for office at 23. Was there
yes.
something prior to that when you're growing up? Was politics a part of your family?
Oh,
Was that something that was just ingrained in you, or was that something that kind of grew on you as a kid?
so I was involved in student government, but that was it. No, nobody in my family has ever run for office. Although I believe in my family we do have. I believe we're just philanthropists in our own. I mean, we've always been a big part of the community and given back in our own ways. But no one had ever run for office. I think that's something that just naturally is born in certain people. Um, I like I said, I was fascinated by government and politics, and the ability to make a difference and be involved. And
But
so
weren't you dissuaded by how dirty things can get, right? Even I was involved in student government on a college level and in high school, and it was shocking to me, how dirty it can get.
yes.
How do you handle that? Like
So
how do you
yes
get that
and no.
thick skin?
I was apprehensive about that possibility and it being that, but I pledged that I would not be that person, that we could do it differently. I really believe there was a different way to to be in politics, and I wanted to change that kind of that stereotype that went with the word politician, right? And I believe that there's a generation of us coming now that really have been able to kind of do that, and we're all actively trying to change that perception of what a politician is. And I don't usually like to refer to myself as a politician, but I also don't want to continue on that trend of making it a negative term. I call myself a public servant, right? That's really what we are. We're public servants, but at the end
Sure.
of the day, the term for, just like for a doctor, it's an MD, or you're in the healthcare industry. We are politicians, and we shouldn't be afraid or embarrassed to say that, because we have to change that negative connotation and that stereotype that goes with it. And I think there's definitely a way to do that. And I started by saying I pledged not to run negative campaigns. I never have. I really run on my own merits and what I believe I can do for my community. And I've been elected with over 70% of the vote each time running on that. So yes, I had some apprehension and I was attacked several times because I was too young, because I don't know, because I ran my own businesses, because whatever you want to think about, they may have said. But
So
always staying on.
how do you deal with that? So like I'm just thinking about, okay, so other people who, okay, so you put yourself out there, right? When you run for office, obviously you're putting yourself out there. You're putting your life out in public in a very real way, and that leaves you vulnerable, right? For people who are a bit more reserved and maybe they're not running for office, but they get to an opportunity where they can put themselves out there, but there's a fear for that. Like, how do you overcome that fear? Or what would you say to those people? Maybe it comes naturally to you and you're not
Yeah.
afraid to put yourself out there, but how do you deal with vulnerability like that?
So I guess there's two ways to kind of look at that. One, I've always been an open book. To me, I was like, I have nothing to hide. So being open and a public person for me is natural. I don't, it doesn't change who I am or how I live my life, because everything that I have, or everything that I accomplish, I work very hard for. And I think people who know me and have followed me know that. And even people who know me from when I was young know that. Before I was in politics, before I was in office. And by the way, just backing up a little bit, when you asked me if it was something that I always knew I did, it's funny because when I first met my husband, when we were talking about, we were dating, talking about our future, I always said to him, I would love to run for office one day. Are you okay with that? And he was like, yeah, I'm totally okay with that. He came from Cuba. He's like, I come from a communist country. I love the fact that just anyone can run for office in this country, and, and make a difference. And I think that that's so important, and why I respect and love this country. And so he was very supportive about that. I never thought it would be at 23. I always thought, in what you think, the stereotype of a politician, right, that I would do that later on when I retired, later in my career, my life, once my kids were off in college. But
Sure.
the opportunity presented itself in a way where I saw that I was involved already in a community that was growing, that had a change in leadership, right? There was a big change coming in leadership for the first time ever, because the city is very young, was very young at the time. We were incorporated in 2003. I was elected in 2012. So really, we had only had two councils. I think I was like the third vice mayor of the city, or the fourth. So it was an opportunity to get involved in a place where we were starting from scratch, which was an amazing experience. So I saw the opportunity and said, you know what, why am I going to hold myself back to later in my life, when now is when I have the energy, the passion, the ability to really get involved and make that difference. And that's why I decided to do it at that age. So yes, it was something I always talked about doing. I just never thought I would do it as young as I did. And you know what, it was a blessing, because I was so young and really had such an open and transparent life, and I really didn't, I never really partied or had like any skeletons in my closet. I was very, or I am very, very clean in a sense. There was nothing for people to attack me on. I was able to run on my merits, on what I wanted to do, and the fact that I was building on a community that was made of people like me. So that's really where it went. So when you're talking about people getting involved and maybe wanting to make a difference, you can't be afraid of what, because even if it doesn't exist, they'll make it up. So if you're not willing to be out there like that, or you feel like that's not something you can take, right? And I don't take anything
Well,
personally when
and not even
it
just in terms of politics, but just being vulnerable in general, right? And maybe just going up on stage to speak, to give a speech, right?
and,
There's a
and
lot of
funny
fear
enough,
around that those actions.
actually, I think it's like the number one fear, more so than death, is people having the fear of public speaking. I obviously don't have that problem. There's people that are just born, I think, with that ability, and there's others that have to nurture it a little more. They have to be able to kind of come out of their shell. And I think the best advice I can give somebody like that is surround yourself with people that push you to come out of your comfort zone, that make you better. I always say, my team, I'm surrounded by people who know more than me, who are better than me, who have more experience than me, because it only elevates and helps me become a better version of myself. So that's something I live by. I believe in surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded, but that are better than you, and you capitalize on those qualities.
And so what do you do to challenge yourself every day or every week? Because the what I tell a lot of my clients and so forth is to keep positive pressure on your comfort zone. So
Yeah.
every once in a while, okay, fine, relax, and take it easy. But we always want to be trying to push our boundaries little, but little by little, because over time you're going to start getting those incremental gains. What do you do? What's your routine like? Like, how do you set yourself up to
I wish
to
I had more
grow,
routine.
right? Not
No.
not a routine, but in terms of like, what are some of
Yeah.
the things like how do you keep yourself growing?
So I'll tell you my key to that is balance. I can't say that I have like a strict routine. And I would tell you, I think the thing that challenges me the most daily is being a mom because every day
Mm.
is different. Every experience is a new one for me. I'm a new mom. So I would say the one thing that challenges me the most is being a mom. And I can put so many experiences on micro scales that change my perspective on a massive scale.
Mhm.
And being a mom and how my mentality has changed and how I've grown after going through that experience. And I think it's made me a better leader even in my community. Um, and again, they're micro issues because he's 5, but believe it or not, those you learn
Oh,
from
yeah.
whether it's patience,
Trust
whether
me, I know.
yeah, so and I think
Yeah.
patience is the biggest one for me, but it's like patience and how to communicate, and understanding your audience, right? So
Yeah.
when I'm talking to a 5-year-old, I talk to them in a way where I don't talk to him like a baby because I believe he has to understand and he's around adults a lot. But I've learned to make sure that when I'm communicating with him, I'm communicating in a way that he understands. And so I take those experience and I just multiply them to be able to do a better job and be a better effective leader and communicator. And even in my business, in my private business, I take those experience and apply them to my colleagues and my team members. And I learn to empower them and to lift them up and remind myself every day that that is an important part of my role. And so I think for me being successful in growing, it's having balance in my life.
And it's hard to find the balance nowadays, especially with
100%.
COVID and working from home. I
Yeah.
think there's a thing out there that, called decision fatigue, where you make so many decisions throughout the day that by the end of the day, you're just so tired of making decisions. You
Yeah.
get to a point. So, I mean, how do you,
And
how do
that's
you
where let me tell you,
kinda deal with that?
that's where having a good team around you comes into
Mhm.
play and is so handy. Like I have people around me. One, I keep a team around me that's been with me for years. I mean, I think I've in the I've had 2 assistants in longer than 12 years. I mean, I keep a good team and I like to and that's where I think empowering them, encouraging them, recognizing their hard work keeps the people around you. So I've been very lucky to keep the same team around me consistency consistently, which creates
Sure.
consistency. So they already know how I think. They know my priorities. They know my what is most important to me. So we start to talk the same language, right? And so it really eases the decision making on me, right? And so it gives me the ability to delegate and know that they are going to act in the same way I would act, that they would handle a problem in the same way
Mhm.
I would handle a problem. And so I think building a strong team around you, like I said, like-minded people, but that are better than you in something. Like my weakness, I would say, is writing, and I'm very strong in math. I'm an accounting major. I did finance and accounting. And that's what I've done my whole life. So reading and writing are my more my weaker qualities, right? Let's
Sure.
say I've gotten better over the years because I've surrounded myself with people that are better than me at it. So my chief of staff went to law school, is about to take the bar, so she's much stronger in that. The person I had before her, which was with me for 6 years, was a writer. She'd written 2 books. So
Mm.
I find people that have those qualities that I know I lack on to make sure
To
my
compensate.
team to compensate and to make sure my team is strong in those things.
And
Now
it's interesting. Yeah, go ahead, finish
now
up.
when I went to the school board, I knew that I needed someone that was strong in academics, right? Because I did not have that background. So I hired someone who's my legislative manager, who has 35 years of experience in academics. He was a principal, he was a regional superintendent, he was a deputy superintendent. So he understands that dynamic that I needed to get stronger on. And so that's how I make sure to build my team, and it's the way that I've always been successful. Even in my marriage, I found the person who helps me compensate for the things that I may feel like I'm not strong in, and same vice versa. And we've grown and built our team within our marriage to be able to, parent our child and everything based
Sure.
on our we play on each other's weaknesses and strengths.
Yeah, it's interesting because that same concept. Well, number one, congratulations, because it's hard to keep a team together for that long. But number two, what I find really powerful is the fact that when you properly orchestrate this team together and you're reading each other's minds almost,
Hmm.
it becomes superfluous, right? It becomes like really one team, which is it's really hard to do that. You get a
Hmm.
lot of people in different companies where you got people coming in and out, and nowadays you hear that it's incredibly difficult to find good talent, right?
Yes.
That can stay. So that's very difficult. Also, I think when it comes to just relationships in people's lives, for those of you out there, when you look at your friends, your 3 or 5 closest friends who you surround yourself with, there is a lot of sense to the adage, right? It's you are the average of the people you surround yourself with.
Right.
And so sometimes we need to, just like we do, take inventory of the people that are in our team. We also need to take inventory of people who are around us, right? And who's supporting us and who's not. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting point.
When a relationship is draining more of you than it is adding to your life and your goals, it's time to reevaluate what that relationship means. And
Yeah,
sometimes, if it's a relationship you've had for many years, it may be that that person's struggling and you need to give a little more to help that person. Sometimes it's just time to move on. And I think
yeah.
identifying that and knowing where your limitations are in that really helps you grow as a person.
So I asked all my guests this question. Was
Yeah.
there a time in your life, was there a game-changing moment or experience or something, a moment that occurred in your life that really kind of changed the trajectory of your life, right? Or kind of lit the light bulb, so to speak. Was there a time in your life when that happened?
I think I've had several of those. Probably have one
Okay.
every year. Yes, absolutely. And I think so for me, and it may sound really cliche, but for me, and if you go back on my Instagram, you'll see that I every January I post kind of my mindset. It's like it's usually around the end of January, I'll post a post about, it's a reflection and then a mindset for that year.
Okay.
And I do vision boards every year. I do vision boards.
Awesome.
This year I've checked off quite a couple things off my vision board, which was nice to be able to do.
That's
I
fantastic.
think more so than any other year, which is great, especially personally. I've been able to get a lot of those things off my bucket list, which is great. But I every year I would say I kind of reflect on what I learned the year before. And again, you can go back to my Instagram and look around January last year was all about my business, and I was selling my business. And so I had a lot of those moments. And so I
Hmm.
think every year when I reflect on what I've learned, what I was set out to accomplish and didn't accomplish, I have one of those game changing moments on where I have to change something in my life. This year, for people who know me, it was my health. It was my personal health. I
Mm,
had a moment this year where I realized I had let my weight get out of control. I let my personal health and just where I was personally, mentally, my mental health. Although I looked very happy and satisfied on the outside, and really I was. It's not that I wasn't, but just physically I wasn't feeling the way I should at my age. And
mhm.
my light bulb was my son. Again,
Ah,
it was something I couldn't do with him physically that made me realize that I couldn't continue down the path I was on. And so I decided to make a huge health change, and I've lost 60 pounds this year.
wow.
So
Bravo. Amazing.
so for me this year was that. In the year prior it was restructuring my business, and being able to sell my business, package it and sell it, which I did. I was able to do it, not by the end of the year, but it was by January of this year.
Yeah.
um so I think every year, and as I gotten older, that ability to do that and kind of reflect and set a goal and set a mindset for myself for that year has really helped. But I've had several game changing moments. I did Anthony Robbins a couple of years ago. I did in 2019,
Yeah.
and that also helped me really change my perspective and outlook on a lot of things that I felt were important before that weren't anymore. And you
Mm.
would think back then would have been my light bulb for my health. That one took me a little longer. That one took me actually physically not being able to do something with my son that I said I would never happen to me again, and I'm on the right track.
That's fantastic. We have different areas of our life, right? Whether it's health, career, relationships, finance, and it's hard to keep an eye on all of them, right? And nobody has them all perfect, right? I mean, very few people, and we tend to kind of focus in one area where we kind of let things slip on the other side, right? But I think there is a huge mind body connection, physically, neurologically, and just spiritually as well, where if you're feeling good, if your body's feeling good, you're going to be in a better state of mind to serve and
100%.
help your family, just to be in a better place. And so for me, I think working out and having that ritual is so important, especially if can do it in the morning before you get your day started, just to kind of level set and release, some endorphins and so forth.
And
I
that's where
don't,
I wish I had a little bit of a better routine. And so, and again, why I also say for me, balance is what I have realized will make me a better version of myself every day, right? So I have to, and it's a constant battle, right? I mean, it's a constant battle. You try and plan for things,
Mhm.
I schedule myself. I have a lot of things that I've committed to, and I believe that when I commit to something, I give it 110%. So I've committed to being a public servant and being a leader in my community. I've committed to being an entrepreneur. I've committed to being a wife. I've committed to being a mother, right? I've committed to doing certain things. I'm on certain boards and I'm in charities and all these things. So when I commit to something, I do it with full intention of
Yeah.
being 110% committed. So I have to balance. I have to have a good team. And again, this year for me was like the health component of that was missing. I was realizing that I wasn't sleeping well. It was a domino effect of things.
So let me ask you, you commit to a lot of things, right? And
Yeah.
you could potentially overcommit. And you seem
I've
like
learned not to do that anymore. I've learned to not do that. Before I would tell you that I would never say no. I've learned that I have to say no
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I
But
can't I can't give my I am if I don't give 110%, I fail myself and I don't want to fail myself. I feel guilty and I can't live like that. So I've learned to say no because prefiero no quedar mal. I prefer not to
yeah.
look bad. And so I very respectfully will decline things or I'll say maybe next year call me, we'll keep in touch and things like that. But I really try to not overcommit.
So that's a great point. So, one, yeah, to not overcommit. But when let's say you're somebody else and you overcommit, when you fail, are you hard on yourself, or do you give yourself a break, right? Because I think you're gung ho about it, and you're gonna run through a wall to make sure it happens.
Mhm.
But eventually, you will fail, right? Like, I'm just thinking about just people in
Mhm.
general, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't forgive themselves and just kind of pull back and say, "Hey, I tried." Or do you like beat yourself up about it?
Yeah, so I think the only way to learn that is to fail and to go through the experiences. That's why I tell you
Mm,
now today, I've learned to say no, right? I had to make those errors and not and feel like
sure.
I'm my own worst critic. And so I feel like I fail to learn that I can't I'd rather not be put in those situations. You have to go through it to learn. To be able to become a better version of yourself, continue to grow, you have to fail, right? You have to learn from those experiences. I try and learn more from other people's experiences versus failing myself. I
Yeah.
try as much as I can to
Of
learn that.
course.
I prefer to learn by watching than and watching others run into the wall than running into the wall myself.
Mhm.
And so I believe I'm a really good I take in a lot of that information and I'm really good observer and learner. But yeah, I mean we all fail and we all and it only helps us become better versions of ourselves. So what I can say to people that are hard on themselves, that's not a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to be hard on yourself because you learn. Now, be you have to have a little bit of a what's the word looking for? You have to be a little bit you have to give yourself a little grace because
Yeah.
sometimes we do have a lot on our plate. So, but it's okay. It's okay to fail. I mean, again, we all fail. I tell my son all the time. When he doesn't do well on on a project or on a whatever, on an assignment, I'm like, well, as long as you tried your hardest, it's okay to not do well because that's the only way you're going to learn. But the most important thing, or my son likes to ask me a lot, Mom, are you proud of me? He asks us all the time, like, Mom, Dad, are you proud of me? He's 5. And I'm like, I'm always proud of you as long as you're doing your best. As long as you're doing your
Mhm.
best, I'm always proud of you. It's not about the end result. For sure, I want you to win or I want you
Right.
to have good grades, but it's not about that. It's about doing your best and giving it your all.
Exactly. And that's having that growth mindset. And I always, in addition to that, I'll like when my daughter says, are you proud of me? And I'll say, hey, and you should be proud of yourself. Because
Absolutely.
when we look for external validation, when it's
Yes.
not there, right?
Yeah.
Who's gonna kind
Yeah.
of pat
That's
ourselves in the
exactly
back, right?
that's
And
right.
so I think it's
And
important
you
to kind of put our oxygen mask on first before we can help others.
Yes, and you do such a great job of that, and that's a great point and something that I have to implement more of. Because yes, you're absolutely right, and especially in my line of work, I mean, we're always kind of looking for the approval of others, right? It's almost what
Yeah.
kind of gives us a stamp of approval that we're doing a good job, right? It's like you're looking for
Mhm.
that thumbs up from everyone else, right? And so I think that that's a huge pointer and something that I'll take from even our conversation today and many conversations we've had, but
Yeah.
definitely something I have to remind myself. Yeah, we have to be a little more graceful on ourselves.
So as we wrap up and you're thinking about next year and you're coming up on probably putting together your vision board and your word for the year and stuff, like what's going to be your focus for the future here?
Um, wow, I haven't really given that 100% thought yet of what my focus will be on next year. I know where I'm headed. That's a loaded question. I'm not too sure what my word of the year will be, but I think always what I try and do is be successful at what I am trying to accomplish that year.
Yeah.
Next year will be a year of, I think, a couple of firsts. Um, because I sold my business this year and I've been able to refocus on a lot of things as far as, again, my health, um, my other businesses, and make sure that those are on an upward trend, which, thank God they are. Um, I think I'm going to refocus where my passion is, in public service, and go for what I know is where I'm strongest. And
Awesome.
so I think that's where I'm going to focus, is on being a better local elected official.
Awesome. Well, Christy, congratulations on all your success. Thank you so much for what you do with the school board, with the community. You're doing a fantastic job with your family, with everyone that you're working with, and obviously you've built a fantastic team and a great marriage, and everything's going pretty well. So, cheers to you guys, and on all your future success that's coming up.
Yes, absolutely. We'll have a lot more to talk about very soon, and I know that we'll continue to make positive strides in this community together.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, and check us out each and every week on Instagram, on Facebook, on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts to check out more episodes. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time. If you loved what you heard in today's episode of Game Changers, please subscribe and rate us. The lessons and the stories in these podcasts are immensely valuable, so I invite you to share them with a friend who needs to hear it. You may end up being the game changer in their lives.